because the only people that had myopia that we know of had myopia back in the day were monks. You need a habit change for this kind of thing. People yell at me a lot about this because they say you're taking the long way, just give me the step.
Jake Steiner, we finally got you on the Live Stylist podcast, dude. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah, for those listening, I've known Jake online for, 2 or 3 years. What is the basic premise of the Bates method? Like, what are the exercises that are suggested to do?
That is a great question. Dr. William Bates, 100 years ago, had a hunch. This was in a time where we didn't understand vision biology very well at all. And he had this idea, it's the close-up vision that is messing up your eyes. And he was exactly correct about that. And he basically said that things like palming and many kind of exercises to relax your eyes. And relaxing your eyes is basically relaxing a muscle in your eye. It's called the ciliary muscle, the focusing muscle, that, as he correctly surmised, gets a spasm when you look at close-up objects for too long. So his fix for myopia basically was relax your eyes and get out of close-up. Now, this was in a time where there were no computers, there were no phone screens. Most people weren't spending that much time looking up close. Like, education wasn't what it is today. So it was much less of a problem, and generally people weren't wearing multiple diopters of lenses. So at his time, his approach was a brilliant direction. And if optometry would have adopted this idea of looking at the cause, today we would live in a totally different world. We wouldn't live in a world where people wear lenses regularly. There would be much more a narrative of we need to correct the initial problem. That didn't happen. Bates got kicked out. Bates was silenced. That went away. And for some reason, that became a really popular online narrative, as many things are today. The problem, though, is Bates' method works for very low myopia, not when you're already wearing strong glasses, because those people say throw away your glasses and all that, which doesn't work with multiple diopters, and in environments where you're not addicted to your smartphone. So it's a super cool idea. It was on the right track 100 years ago, but today when it's brought up, they're still using a 100-year-old method that's not that applicable.
If Bates was uncovering this 100 years ago, and there did exist at that point, abundant cases of myopia around the world, were people getting it from, working in a factory, or even going back further, would people have developed this eye spasm, or this kind of locking of the eye, or the elongation of the eye from weaving baskets or chipping arrowheads or doing something repetitively all day long that's up close?
Yes, and actually glasses were invented, arguably, some say 16th century, some say 13th century, for monks, because the only people that had myopia that we know of had myopia back in the day were monks. And back in that day, the only people who knew how to read were monks, right? And there was a lot of close-up time, a lot of reading in that light, which is also not great for your eyes. So they would sit next to a candle, right, close to pages, reading and writing. Monks got myopia back in the day, but it was only monks. And the more that prevalence of close-up increased, the more myopia increased also.
Got it. So with some of these other exercises, you mentioned palming. So that's where you would cover up one eye and attempt to read things or operate using one eye. Or sometimes, for example, when my eyes feel strained, and this has not improved my vision as far as I can tell, but I normally meditate with a really good eye mask. It's called what the hell is it called? Mindfold. It's a really good big blackout mask. And at the end of my meditations, typically I'll open my eyes for a while and try to focus on the darkness where there's nothing to focus on. And I find that when I do that, it kind of eases the strain on my eyes. But as I said, it hasn't improved them notably. So that kind of methodology has only been effective for a few people then, but not widespread, or not with someone like you that had, a really kind of severe case of myopia and now is 20/20. Is that, I guess I'm wondering is why has something like the Bates method and these different exercises persisted and not just kind of withered away online? Are they working for some people that aren't that bad off, or what?
So my take on all of that stuff, for one, is it doesn't really address the problem very well as it stands today. But the bigger issue is whenever I hear exercise, I already know it's not going to work because you need a habit change for this kind of thing. Because, for example, you can improve your eyesight by about a diopter a year, right? So I had 5 diopters, so that's at least 5 years. And with our lifestyles, we have plenty of things going on. Most people can't even get just regular gym exercise together. Exercising your eyes on top of that regularly enough and consistently enough just isn't feasible for most people. If you were super serious about Bates' method, you would be taking the really hard way, but you could improve your eyesight. Also, that ciliary muscle spasm that you get, by the way, it's called pseudomyopia. Scholar.google.com only has peer-reviewed clinical science. And pseudomyopia basically means not actual myopia. Another keyword on there is near-induced transient myopia, which is exactly what it sounds like. Near-induced, meaning caused by near vision, and transient, meaning temporary. That early myopia where your muscle is just spasmed. So if you get really serious about Bates and you had low myopia, or even if you had higher myopia, you're initially going to get some results just from doing these exercises that help you relax that muscle temporarily. So you can improve as much of a diopter in a relatively short period of time and be really excited about it long enough to write 10 posts on the internet, right? And that propagates the Bates method thing. I get so much email from people who say they tried it, and ultimately the goal of getting back to 2020 doesn't happen for most people.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And I'm assuming that would be the same for these pinhole glasses. If I'm not mistaken, I might have even emailed you a couple of years ago because I read somewhere online, Dr. Google, that I was like, oh, these pinhole glasses. And so I was like wearing these stupid glasses around for a while. And eventually I, was bumping into things too often. And so I abandoned wearing these pinhole glasses. I would even wear them on the freeway sometimes. Don't tell the C.
Who is that rapper? Who is the guy? Didn't some guy popularize these?
Right.
Who is it?
I forget who it is, but yeah, they have been in vogue under a different name. But I think my theory there was like, I'm going to use these pinhole glasses and drive with my vision fixed on as far distance as I possibly can. It's strange, but you can actually see with them, which is weird. But of course, that didn't work. Would that be kind of within the same methodology of having to do some kind of eye exercises to improve things?
Yeah, the practical aspect of this, for me personally, and now for a larger group of people, is there something you can do in your regular life without wearing pinhole glasses on the highway, right? Because how many people are going to honestly do this or do eye exercises? It's just not a high enough priority. If you're talking about going bald, right, or having muscles or something that's more vanity-based or pain-based, people will go through the effort. But eyesight is fixable enough with LASIK, with glasses, with contact lenses that the amount of effort somebody will invest is going to be relatively low, as was mine. So for me, the thing was, I'm only going to do a thing that I can make a habit, especially in hindsight, And in hindsight, it's also what got me off of all these things in part was I started looking at causality. And people yell at me a lot about this because they say you're taking the long way, just give me the steps. But you're going to chase down the next, pinhole glasses thing till you understand the basic biology and until you understand why all of this stuff is not going to work. Like what I just started with, the pseudomyopia thing, that's how your myopia started. So when you first time you go to the optometrist and you get the first pair of glasses, you're getting a fix for something that is not being addressed. That muscle spasm persists and they're just giving you glasses to hide the symptom, right? So the more you understand about the underlying biology, the less you're going to get confused by weird approaches that you find online.